to ask the question about culture, because you mentioned you quite specifically focused on culture, and in India there's still very much a level of decision making. I mean, the best example I can give you is I work with Mahindra & Mahindra, and I work with the Corpcom guys over there. And yet, when they want to make a very serious decision about any releases, press releases that they do with us, Anand Mahindra has to be involved. Now, he could be traveling anywhere around the world, and yet there's still, the people who run the Corpcoms of that business are not ultimately responsible for the Corpcoms of that business. How would you deal with a challenge like that?
If you actually look at the capability continuum of what actually a corporate communicator does, or what is it that a corporate communicator needs to be successful, the core of that is personal credibility. If the person, and I always say that crises really manifest externally, is because of one single reason: it's because of weak internal coordination. If you are do not have a seat at the table, if people don't consider you as personally credible or someone who they can hand over the ship to, then I think that is the most important thing. And very often in organizations that you join, you shouldn't even embark on anything externally unless you have built that reservoir of internal bank and goodwill. That is the first task. And I think if that has not been built, I think that is something which is a missing link. Having said that, for Anand Mahindra to make sure that he sees the court, he jolly well must see the court, because that is the same case with a billion-dollar organization like Apple, for instance. Because it is something that is attributed to that particular individual. And believe you me, I've worked on multinationals as well as family-owned organizations. Anything that has their name, it is always best to having to check it out, because it has several ramifications. Just to kind of add to the point, 3 companies today, for instance, have $150 billion of cash sitting on their balance sheets: Apple, Google, and Microsoft, right? 150. And if you look at the FDI flows of the country, they are averaging about 100 billion today. Now, it's jolly well very, very important. The most important thing is to make sure that what is said publicly, the CEOs of that company sleeps over it, rewrites the whole piece, because he has a wider lens. He's looking at it from a statesman kind of a lens and not from an operational lens. So that's broadly, I think the organization CEO must see it, is what I would say.
In speaking of corporate responsibility, I'll start with a little anecdote, a joke that I often tell. I wear my President Obama t-shirt proudly in India. And I often make the comment that Indians love Obama, but they all agree he could be 6 shades lighter in just 7 days. My question is, do we not have a corporate responsibility to stop telling a nation of brown-skinned children that they will be better off if they're whiter? Their jobs will be better, their girlfriends will be prettier, everything gets better the whiter you get. Is that not an obligation that starts with you guys and emanates through the corporate structure?
I completely agree with you at a personal level. As a photographer, for example, I have never used whatever meager talents I have to promote fairness ever. Okay, I have never shot for a fairness cream. I refuse to do so. So, but that's my personal take. There are a bunch of my clients, okay, who do not endorse that. And the first thing we do when we take on somebody is to ask these questions, and they don't. But if they choose to do it, I don't stand in the way. I mean, is it wrong? Yes, I agree with you. I think we're brown. A whole lot of people spend hours in the sun risking basal skin cancer and apply a $1 billion industry of potions to look our color. So I'll never get it as to why we aren't happy where we are. I think we're perfectly toasted, and But that's my take. And like I said, as a photographer, I've never shot for a fairness cream. And the assistants who have worked with me in terms of, I don't know if you'll understand this term of Guru Dakshina, so to speak. So the only thing I ever tell them is, listen, do whatever else you want. Do me a favor and yourself for the long run. Don't shoot for a fairness cream. There's enough money out there, for you to shoot for anything else. I'll shoot for alcohol, no problem. I mean, I think everybody should have a drink, and not drive, but should have a drink. Yeah, exactly. So, and then, I've shot for cigarettes. You're dumb if you smoke. So, I was once. but it's an informed, stupid choice. But this is something you cannot control. That's the color you are. And, I think you should be happy. But that's to answer your question.
I think I'll just add to that a little bit. Culturally speaking, communications is always set in a cultural context. And what happens is that, you heard some speakers yesterday, and they talked about how they communicate to become, quote unquote, more Indian as an organization. There are values, there are sensibilities, and there are messages. And most of the multinational organizations today, unless they are selling a fairness cream, and like Atul's very rightly taken a choice not to go and sort of promote it, the rest of the values and rest of the messages that go out are really about how they belong to rebuilding either the Indian, empowering Indian society, empowering Indian people, or contribute to be very careful in terms of what you communicate and don't hurt sensibilities. So,
Atul, this is a question addressed to you. When you look at the definition of corporate reputation, one of the elements is that it's how a corporation or a brand is perceived in context of its leading competitors, right? So the competitive set within which you are slotting it is a very big part of it. So my question to you is that when you're dealing with individuals' reputations, is that a conscious thing that you try and manage? You gave some names. Are you trying to slot in the mind of the audience?
No, completely. Because a particular brand can realistically have the perfect choice in option B and option C. I don't believe there's an option D at all. And those people usually compete for the same categories across the board. That will be at different levels in terms of seniority, price points, et cetera, whatever. But what we do is, I don't know if anyone else does, but we engage Ipsos every year, and they charge us a lot of money to give us exactly this, as to how my person competes on different sets of parameters with somebody else. And then, when my business team goes and talks to brands, this is something they really look forward to getting in terms of research. So, and we'll use keywords, in that, like when we're mapping this, and it works very, very effectively for us. So we're trying to put a science to the business of celebrity management. Of course, very often what happens is after you take everything to, somebody will say, वो क्या है ना मेरी बहुरानी को ये बहुत पसंद है. So, people still choose, their brand ambassadors based out of emotion and because they hated the last movie or not. I'll give you one quick example on this is Abhay Deol, who we used to manage, and we'd done a lot of good work with him. There was a deal that was all but done on a clothing campaign. And it was just a cursory meeting with the lady in charge of the organization from this old industrial house. And we went, hello, Atul ji, kaise hain aap, and etc. Please sit, have some tea, and so on. And then her CEO, basically told her that, okay, we're about to sign this thing. So, it's all done and dusted, and we're shooting next week. So now Dev D had released 2 weeks ago, okay, for Abe's. And, she looked up and somewhere a penny dropped and suddenly her demeanor changed to, anger. She was really upset. He said, "Kaun wo bewda? Hamara brand ambassador, ho hi nahi sakta." That the meeting was over. It was hilarious because she didn't separate the fact that the guy played a perennially drunk, angst-ridden lover in a movie and, so on. So when we're doing these things, all kinds of strange things pop up where all the research in the world suddenly gets thrown out of the window because of some random thing like this sometimes. So, the Bahurani and Kumar, the coffee boy's opinion sometimes matters a lot. But we like to, we like to keep the emotion out of whatever. One guy actually made a chart and came back to us with his findings when we went next time. They said, I took a chart in my entire office and put option A, B, C, and then put tick marks and calculated. In that, he had done a subsection of what level executive they were, and there was a coffee boy section as well. So, the canteen staff had chosen someone else altogether. So it was quite cool.